Arya arrives back at Winterfell. We discover what is hidden in the dragonglass mines, and Daenerys finally unleashes Drogon on her enemies. Hi everyone, this is Robert. Welcome to Deep Geek, particularly if you're a first-time viewer. Please do consider subscribing if you enjoy the video. This is my detailed explanation of Season 7, Episode 4 of Game of Thrones, The Spoils of War. If you have any questions or comments about Episode 4, then please leave them in the comments section below. I'll pick up on these in a Q&A video later in the week. Let's start in Winterfell. With Arya's arrival, we now have 3 Starks back home, and all of them are very changed people from when they left. Arya herself, interestingly, doesn't try to hide who she is now. She seems to relax and be herself more, as both a Stark and a faceless assassin, once she has been welcomed home properly. This is good progress for her, as she has had several years now of quite serious identity issues. While she may not be ready yet to tell her entire story, she is open with Bran and Sansa about having her list of assassination targets, and openly shows off her fighting skills while sparring with Brienne. Bran is also still in the midst of a massive shift in self-identity. We learn a lot more here about what is going on with him, and why he has been so emotionless so far this season. He admits that, although he retains the memories of being Bran, they have been overwhelmed by all the other memories that he now carries around with him. To all intents and purposes, he is, as he says, no longer Bran. He is now the Three-Eyed Raven, and this seems to rob him of even the most basic compassion or civility, even to those he is closest to, or who have given the most for him. One of the most moving moments of this episode was undoubtedly Mira's exit. She has given so much for Bran over the last few seasons, saving his life countless times and seeing her brother die. But when she tells Bran she wants to return home to her family now he is safe, he can barely muster an emotionless thank you. She deserves much, much more. But I don't think this is the last time we will see her. Her family means Howland Reed, her father, and perhaps the only person left in the Seven Kingdoms who can relate to Bran or mentor him in some way. Through all of this swims Littlefinger, who is becoming increasingly ineffective, which may in fact make him all the more dangerous as he realises his situation. We see him giving away the cat's paw dagger to Bran. This is a curious move, but it seems to be a way to try to ingratiate himself with the person he thinks is the new Lord of Winterfell. Not that he gets much of a response, other than the trick Bran has done a few times already this season, telling someone something about themselves that he could not possibly have known. This time he tells Littlefinger that chaos is a ladder. It's something Littlefinger himself said to Varys way back in Season 3, when he was explaining his philosophy that you first create chaos, as he did by setting the Starks and Lannisters against each other, and then you seize every opportunity within that to grab power for yourself. And Littlefinger is understandably disconcerted. If Bran knows that, then what else does he know? He also seems unsettled by Arya's display of prowess when sparring with Brienne, and that now she has the dagger he gave to Bran. Perhaps it is dawning on him that Sansa no longer needs him. Bran probably knows what he has done, and Arya could kill him very, very easily. The pieces are starting to slot into place for his final reckoning with the Starks, and I think he is starting to realise it. Expect him to react more strongly in the next episode, perhaps by trying to create some of the chaos he loves so much. And finally in Winterfell we have Brienne, who, as Pod points out, now finds herself having finally fulfilled the promise she made to Catelyn Stark, to see Arya and Sansa safely back in Winterfell. She is right that her role in keeping them both safe was minimal. She saved Sansa's life, but Arya's return was nothing to do with her. But still, she has kept her oath. This will probably come up again later because it is central to her relationship with Jaime. They both vowed to Catelyn Stark that they would ensure the safe return of her daughters, and it's why Jaime gave her the sword Oathkeeper, to fulfill that promise because he couldn't. When they meet again, she will surely tell him. Moving briefly to King's Landing, we see Cersei continue her dialogue with the Iron Bank, and we find out a bit more of her plan. Once she has paid back the money she owes them, she will immediately take out a new loan and hire soldiers, the Golden Company, who are a massive sellsword army currently based in Essos, to lead her bid to retake the Seven Kingdoms. And despite what happens later in the episode, Cersei does get her gold. It is all delivered safely before the wagon train is attacked, so her plan is still live. The debt will be paid off, and she will be able to get a new loan to buy a replacement army. She may not even view what happened on the Rose Road as a significant defeat. This will almost certainly be different to how Jaime sees it. On Dragonstone, we have a whole series of important moments. First, we have the big reveal about what is in the dragonglass mine. Lots of dragonglass for sure, but also some Westerosi equivalent of ancient cave paintings. They aren't particularly clear, but you can make out the White Walkers, including the Night King, and the symbol that the White Walkers keep drawing, the pattern of stones where they were first created, as well as, intriguingly, the shape of pin brooch that the Targaryens often wear. This throws up a huge amount of questions. What the Children of the Forest were doing on Dragonstone, why they left, what the meaning is of the Targaryen pin brooch, and so on. But in this episode, the cave art seems to be just a mechanism to help Jon prove his point to Dany, that the things from ancient history are real. And it seems to have the desired effect. Dany agrees to fight for him if he bends the knee, even before she learns of her latest military setback. And she asks a very relevant question. If this is so important, why doesn't he just kneel? Now she has promised to fight for him if he does. Surely the fate of humanity is more important than his pride? We don't actually see his response. Did he kneel? Did he refuse? They don't speak of it, and the implication is that he didn't, but we can't be 100% sure. And it's clear through a whole series of small gestures that Dany is now starting to trust Jon. She tells her Dothraki guard that she doesn't need them to protect her around him. She agrees to help him if he will kneel. She even asks his opinion later as to what she should do next. And in turn, when Davos teases Jon that he's seen him staring at Dany's good heart, he doesn't deny it, just saying that there isn't time for that. And Davos at least is impressed by Missandei singing Dany's praises, so there's clearly some kind of rapport growing there. When we come to the confrontation on the beach following Daenerys being told about the reverses at Casterly Rock and Highgarden, she rounds on Tyrion, querying whether he really does want to hurt his family after all. Like all good barbs, there is actually an element of truth to this. Tyrion doesn't want Jaime to be hurt, as we see when he thinks Jaime is riding to his death later in the episode. Daenerys once more defaults to her usual position of wanting to just take her dragons and burn her enemies. This time it is Jon who seems to talk her into a more humane approach. He tells her that if she uses her dragons to melt castles and burn cities, then she isn't any different to her father, or Cersei, or any of the other monarchs who have ruled without caring about the masses of people under their yoke. Daenerys deciding to attack the Lannister army is a reasonable compromise position. It deals a blow to Cersei, without immediately impacting on innocent civilians. Incidentally, there is little doubt that Daenerys' instincts are right here. Simply laying waste to King's Landing probably would win her the Iron Throne there and then, but it's a test of her character. So far, despite her fire and blood tendencies, she is coming through it well. Finally, on Dragonstone, we see Theon returning, and Jon reacts here as he has quite regularly this season, with compassion. He judges Theon not just on what he has done in the past, which, let's not forget, contains some pretty hideous crimes, but on who he is now, and who he is aspiring to be. We don't get much here, but it's worth noting that the Ironborn who saved him remain loyal to Yara, and they have come to seek Dany's help to rescue her. The main event in this episode is, of course, the battle on the Rose Road, if indeed we can call it a battle, for it is more like a massacre. The Lannister army are not prepared, not dug in, and apparently have no scouts keeping a lookout for enemies. The Dothraki on their own, on the charge, would probably still have won that battle quite easily, but once you add a dragon into the mix, the result is a foregone conclusion. The battle itself doesn't need all that much commentary, but we should spare a minute or two for Bronn. We see more of him here than we have for many a season. Leaving aside his heroics in shooting Drogon and saving Jaime, for I think that was him at the end leaping to save Jaime from being barbecued, we discover a huge amount about his true character here. Above all, we see his intense pragmatism. Yes, we know that he wants money and the castle he was promised, and his request for Highgarden is cheeky but entirely within character, but we learn that he is willing to cast aside all these things with barely a second thought in favour of security. He happily takes Jaime's gold, but abandons it when it might cost him his life. He wants a castle, but not one that he can't defend. His usefulness in battle here is very apparent. He is the first to realise that they are under attack, and the first to recognise that it is a lost cause. And he shows just how effective he is with a ballista and a flying rugby tackle from horseback. But there's something more. He shows his true loyalties. If he were just a self-serving sellsword, he could have abandoned the battle amidst the confusion, rather than cross the battlefield to get Qyburne's weapon. And he could have not risked his life to save Jaime. But he clearly feels honour-bound in some way to do his duty or to save someone he has grown to care about. It's a trait of Bronn's that we rarely see highlighted, but it's there nonetheless. But to return to the battle itself, there are some big takeaway points for the rest of the season. First, the wagon train with the grain supplies, or at least this part of it, is destroyed completely by Daenerys in a deliberate move. Indeed, she seems to be targeting that more with Drogon than she does the Lannister soldiers. This is a curious move, because with the battle won, she could have done with the supplies herself. Now, however, no one has that food, and winter is very much here. There will be no more harvests. Second, we see Drogon in action. The wonder of this battle is that it shows us both the destructiveness and the vulnerability of the dragons. There are only 3 of them, and we see here that a well-placed or lucky shot can cause serious damage. Tyrion and Missandei were right to highlight the risks as well as the opportunities provided by having the dragons. Third, we see Jaime. When people saw this shot in the Season 7 trailer, many assumed that he was tilting at a dragon, but I think his target here is actually Daenerys. He could have won the war in one fell swoop if he had made it a few more yards, but he doesn't, and we last see him slowly sinking into the Blackwater Rush. I don't think this is the end for him, and what happens next probably depends on who fishes him out. Tyrion saw what happened, so perhaps he will. But more importantly for Jaime, we have several shots of him drinking in the horror of the battle and the devastation caused by Drogon. I think this will be a turning point of sorts for him, when he realises quite how futile it is fighting against dragons. I can see him emerging from the water a changed man, figuratively reborn, and at some point trying to persuade Cersei not to provoke Daenerys any further. But Cersei will only see this as a victory. The Iron Bank off her back, a new army on the way, and a dragon proven to be mortal. In reality, this was a significant victory for Daenerys. Although we don't yet know the extent of the damage to Drogon, and Cersei's plan is still progressing at pace, so, like last week, neither of them have a decisive lead in the war for the Iron Throne, just lots more dead soldiers, and a lot less food for everyone. Meanwhile, off-screen, and away from our attention, the threat from beyond the wall moves ever further south. What do you think? What struck you most about episode 4? And do you have any questions for my Q&A video? Please put them in the comments below. If you'd like to support me in making these videos, the best way to do it is through Patreon, and I've got a great community starting to grow over there. And of course, if you want to know when my next video comes out, then please click on the subscribe button and make sure your notifications are enabled. Thanks for watching. That's all for this time. I'll see you again soon.